All right. Thank you so much. It's great to meditate together, or to contemplate contemplative meditation together. So I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much for joining in that. Um, yeah, that's great. I admit that I lose track of what I actually have to want to say when I read the prayer, for instance, coming out of the meditations. Like, stillness is still, it is complete and whole in itself, and words seem to be so, it can support, sure, but it's different. So that's what I always discovered now again. But so today, in our preparation for listening to Joel, and I decided to listen to the first half hour of Joel. We started that at the whole hour. So listening to that, immediately when the talk starts, something is being said by Joel, and one of the things is, truth is radical. Truth is radical. See, and we actually discover that in our meditation too. It's like God is the only law. That in itself is an acceptable idea, that you can easily accept that. And that's the same with God is our soul, God is our, all that. And God is my individual being, is what I am. Sure, I can accept that. I'm actually conceptually can accept that. I can feel that as nice, as yes, that's true. See, and that part is acceptable. So, in truth understood, in this talk that Joel gives, the understanding of what we're talking about and is not a conceptual understanding. It is not about, that's great. I love to understand truth, and that's acceptable to me. The ideas of truth, like I will not fight it at all. No, not at all. So this is what you see happening in your mind too. It's like truth understood as a title. It's like, that's great. Yeah, I would love to know how I can understand truth. But then immediately you walk up against something, and it's this. And don't forget that during listening to the talk. It's like, it is not the conceptual understanding of truth. That has nothing to do with truth. So if truth is, then what is there to understand, if you ask, It's like, what is there to understand? So then what I just shared comes together with this idea, and that is this. In order for you to conceptually support yourself in your transformation, in your awakening, you see that your your conceptual mind is helpful to a certain point. And which part is it helpful? Well, in this part. Actually, you come to discover what isn't truth. It's like truth, yes, I love to accept truth. But what you don't maybe not like is this. All else, what you have accepted as valuable to you, is not true. See, and that's where the understanding becomes, practical, becomes useful too. So if there's one line that says God is the only law, then you say, like, yes, I love that. I love that as an idea. That feels so good to read that. Absolutely. So then here, your conceptual mind says, yes, I like that. I like that idea. But then the next step is, that means that every law I made up, every law that I made up as a reality for myself, has no reality, has nothing to do with truth, has nothing to do with life, has nothing to do with my very being. See, and then you come to the place where you start to see more and more fall away. It's like the peeling of the onion's skins, it's like, yeah, there's one falling away. No, that's not truth either. No, that is not truth either. That has nothing to do with truth either. The laws that I made up, the things that I think about myself, the things that I think about my body or what can happen to it, the things I think about sickness, disaster, disease, war, you name it. All the great ideas I have about changing the world, or all the great ideas I have to fix my relationship, or all the, just continue on. So all that are still parts of the onion peel, are parts of the thing that has nothing to do with truth, and that you identify with as thinking that it has to do with you. So now we come to the place, slowly but certainly, where truth is understood, in the sense that our understanding goes this far. Truth will speak of itself. Truth is just true. Truth is true, and nothing else is true. See, and the second part is not easily to accept immediately, because you don't even know what you accept. You don't even know what you have accepted as a replacement for the truth. So it is not that you have to psychoanalyze everything to dissect it or whatever. It's like, no, because what we did in our contemplative meditation, for instance, is connecting with what is and becoming still and seeing that besides all that I think about myself, when I let go of these ideas for just an instant, suddenly there's a measure of realization, or there's a measure of, like, you get a glimpse of light, or suddenly something happens to you, like this, or suddenly you enter into timelessness, even what I was inviting you into. Suddenly you enter into timelessness. That is where, like, a quantum leap is occurring. That's where where a lot of change is happening. It appears to be just a moment of quiet together, or a prayer, no, but it is not. It is not. No, it is a quantum leap coming closer to letting truth be true, and forgetting about your laws of friendship, your laws of sickness, your laws of medicine, your laws of economics, your laws of justice. All this has nothing to do with truth, has nothing to do with your being, your very being. No. So that's why I invited you in the meditation to say, meet the light as a rose meeting the morning sun. It's like that. Does the rose go anywhere? No, it just sits there. It just stands there, just being what it is, receiving the sunlight and growing in that, like resonating with it, with every cell and fiber of its being. Or if you have pets, like your cat or your dog or who knows what, when it's enjoying the sunlight, this is your meditation. This is meditation, like absorbing it, just being with it, allowing it, and becoming so still in it. It's a very joyful and it's a very pleasant state, and it has everything to do with your being. So that's why something happens when you become still. Truth enters in. So truth comes closer to you. It's like it is literally attracting you more and more and more, because it's what you are. So you have a recognition with it. That's why you come to this class. That's why you come to any kind of meditation time, or that's why you take quiet time during the day, to come in touch with that inner, say, sacred place where that occurs, where the stillness speaks and becomes so attractive. And then suddenly you're going to enter into the world again, but not the same way. Like suddenly you had this glimpse of truth, of light, and now you go back into the world and everything is different. Everything is different. Nothing is the same anymore, because you got your recognition of who you are, of that there is such thing as peace, and that it goes with you wherever you go, that you cannot lose it at all. So that's a great thing that Joel shares here. It's like truth is so radical. It's so radical in the eyes of the world. From you as looking at it from your conceptual perspective, it is radical because it has nothing to do with form. It has nothing to do with this place that you call your world. It has nothing to do with it. And at the same time, it is a whole part of you. So that's radical. That's really radical. And lovely. It's So this was one part that I wanted to use, in fact, to open our ears to, like, oh yeah, let's not forget about this. It's like, let's not forget about this. Like, truth understood is not a conceptual activity. No, it's basically looking at everything that isn't truth and understanding that is not truth, and going a step further by accepting that has nothing to do with your reality. So truth is going to be true no matter what. So then the next part, it's on page 9, I think. Maybe we will get to it, maybe not, I don't know. In the tape, probably not actually. But it's a nice part too. Oh yeah, so this was the part where I got the meditation from too. I'll read one part of it. There are 3 major principles, Joel says, which cover the healing work in the infinite way. These principles are not to be found anywhere else in religious literature. Certainly not in metaphysical literature. Certainly not as basic principles that must be lived without deviation and exception. And these principles must be applied until consciousness is so illumined that perhaps Jesus could always say, just pick up your bed and walk, or open your eyes. We don't know. There's no record whether or not that was the way he always did. We do know that he went apart for many, many days, and maybe this is part of the work that he did. It's part of what I do. And then Joel says this: God constitutes individual being. Well, this is the meditation we did. The life of God is the life of your being. So these are the major principles that cover the healing work. Like, one of the things is this. Say, the mind of God, the soul of God, the spirit of God, the soul of God, or the soul which is God, the life which is God, is your very being. Constitutes the essence and fiber of your body. So that is what it covers. It's like, yes, that part. See, this is where the healing occurs too. It's like, that is governed by one law, and that's God's law. It has nothing to do with your own ideas. It has nothing to do with the laws, like the medical laws that you made up. Or it has nothing to do with that part. It has nothing to do with it. So and this is always like the hardest thing then in trying to get understanding of truth. It's like, you cannot, like, it is more like this. If you look at this with your conceptual mind, if you look at this with your, say, your five senses and all that. Everything that's said to you, everything that you hear, everything that you feel, you translate it automatically into the sphere where you perceive it. You implement it in your humanness. So that's the same then with ideas as God is love. It's like, no, God is love is not a concept. God is love is not a concept. It has nothing to do with that. It doesn't fit in your frame of reference as a human being. It is of a different order. It is an experience itself. Like it is a whole idea. It's what God is. Like there's no idea that describes God. You cannot describe it. So there's no idea that describes God that actually is it, without being the total experience of the love that you are. That is where, and you cannot understand it, and don't try to fit it into your frame. But you can experience it. That's why we do the meditation. It's like, well, just remember this rose, receiving that sunlight, that morning sunlight. This is you. This is you. You receive that light for yourself. You receive that light and disappear into it, letting everything go, every concern, every obstacle that you see, every conception that you hold about what things are. All of that has nothing to do with it. So that makes it easy. But it also makes it radical, like what Joel says here. So it makes it easy in the sense of, well, none of it is so. None of what you think about yourself is so. So here's your, say, you enter into it. Yeah, here's your door where you can enter through. None of this is so. No, this is not it. No, that's not it either. No. And it doesn't take away that you can have a full-blown experience of communication in this instant. Nothing is stopping you from that. That is how easy that is. That's too easy for complex thinking human minds. So this is what I wanted to say, give to you, bring in, however you want to call it, before we listen to Joel. So I'm going to set myself up for, sharing this through the screen and through, the audio. And so we will be back in 5 minutes or so. I shall be ready to do this. So thank you. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in 5 minutes when